There was a time when I thought stepping away from my income would feel exciting. Like a milestone. Like proof I had finally made it. But the first time I actually tried to step back, not dramatically, just quietly reducing my involvement, what I felt wasn't excitement. It was tension. Everything looked stable. Revenue was steady. The system worked. Nothing was chaotic. From the outside, it seemed mature. And yet, when I wasn't actively monitoring it, I felt uneasy. Not because anything had broken, but because I didn't fully trust that it wouldn't. If you feel tension when you step away, your income still depends on you more than you realize. That realization was uncomfortable because I had worked hard. I had built processes. I had refined offers. I had clarity. On paper, this was a working system. But a working system is not the same thing as a system you can leave. That difference only becomes visible when you test it. So I tested it. I stopped correcting minor friction immediately. I stopped jumping into every conversation. I stopped refreshing dashboards constantly. I didn't vanish. I just reduced my interference. Then I watched. Some parts of the system continued almost effortlessly. Buyers moved through the pathway. Decisions happened. Revenue arrived without additional push. Other parts stalled. Momentum slowed. Questions surfaced that normally I would have answered instantly. Conversions hesitated. That contrast told me the truth. Where income continued, structure existed. Where income slowed, I was still the engine. For a long time, I had confused consistency with independence. If income was predictable, I assumed it was strong. But consistency can be powered by vigilance. It can be powered by your constant presence. It can be powered by small daily corrections that you barely notice anymore. Maintenance can look like leverage from the outside. But maintenance is exhausting. Because income is still being held upright manually. The deeper problem wasn't technical. It was psychological. I had tied safety to involvement. If I was present, income felt safe. If I was active, results felt controlled. If I was visible, momentum felt protected. That mindset is subtle and dangerous because it trains you to believe that stepping away equals risk. Designing systems you can step away from means removing yourself as the stabilizer. That's not about laziness. It's about architecture. I started asking myself uncomfortable questions. If I stopped showing up for a week, what part of my income would collapse first? If I reduced visibility, would demand disappear? If I stopped manually persuading, would conversions drop sharply? The answers weren't flattering. There were places where clarity depended on my tone. Places where trust depended on my reassurance. Places where momentum depended on my reminders. None of those weaknesses were obvious while I was constantly active. They only surfaced when I reduced activity. That's when I realized something important. Output builds income. Architecture protects income. And I had been over-invested in output. Refinement is slower than production. It doesn't feel heroic. It feels quiet. It feels invisible. You don't get immediate validation for tightening positioning or clarifying messaging. But refinement compounds differently. When messaging handles objections before you speak, you remove dependency. When positioning attracts aligned buyers without heavy persuasion, you remove dependency. When pathways move people forward without constant nudging, you remove dependency. Dependency is subtle. It hides in personalization that shouldn't be required. The first time I stepped away for several days, and income didn't materially shift, I noticed something unexpected. Calm. There was no backlog of emergencies. No sudden drop that needed urgent repair. No feeling that I had to rush back in. That calm changed how I viewed my work, because for the first time, I wasn't equating activity with security. Income that survives your absence is structurally different from income powered by your activity. That difference changes your nervous system. When income depends on you, you operate in vigilance. You check constantly. You feel responsible for every fluctuation. Your energy level determines your confidence. When income survives you, your relationship to work shifts. You start thinking in longer horizons. Instead of asking, "What do I need to push today?" you ask, "What part of this system still depends on me unnecessarily?" That question is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront where your ego is still embedded. Being indispensable feels powerful, but indispensable and leveraged are opposites. If everything collapses without you, you are not leveraged. You are central, and central points are fragile. I began deliberately designing for absence, not as an escape plan, as a structural test. If I removed myself from a stage of the process, what would break? If I stopped manually intervening in a recurring friction point, what would surface? If I paused visibility, what would happen to demand? When something weakened, I didn't panic. I reinforced it. If buyers were confused, I clarified messaging. If conversions depended on persuasion, I strengthened positioning. If momentum slowed without reminders, I redesigned the pathway. This wasn't glamorous work, but over time, I felt the weight shift. The system began carrying more of the load. That's when stepping away stopped feeling reckless. It started feeling responsible. Because the goal was never disappearance. The goal was resilience. Resilience means income doesn't collapse the moment your energy dips. It means effort lingers instead of evaporating. It means clarity continues influencing decisions even when you're not in the room. Momentum is loud. Leverage is quiet. Momentum feels powerful because it's visible, but it fades when force fades. Leverage is stored effort. It persists. The moment your income continues without you pushing it, you're no longer just working, you're building assets. That line became real to me only after I felt it. Not because income exploded, but because it stabilized. And stability creates a different kind of confidence. You stop obsessing over daily fluctuations. You stop reacting emotionally to minor dips. You stop believing that every day must be maximized for income to survive. Instead, you build patiently. You refine patiently. You test absence deliberately. And over time, you trust architecture more than effort. Designing systems you can step away from isn't about working less. It's about building income that doesn't panic when you pause. It's about replacing supervision with structure. It's about turning effort into something that continues influencing outcomes even after you've stopped applying it. That's when income begins to behave like something constructed instead of something performed. And construction holds. Even when you step away.